Hello. Hello, testing. Hello everyone. If you're coming for the rally, please visit the hand sanitizing table over there. If you need, we've got some spare face masks so we can all keep each other safe. Remembering also to keep a safe distance from each other. You'll find some important leaflets about what we'll be talking about today. One on our petition on reforms, the other on stop and search, and how you can get in contact with us and sign up and be involved in this. So please take them to read and share. And finally, we have a couple of people that will be circulating donation buckets. Please give whatever change you can, and no matter how small, we rely on your donations to put on events like this to continue the fight against racism. So we're going to be starting in a couple of minutes at 1:15. In the meantime, please visit the table and pick up some leaflets. Hey John, thank you so much. Karen's got your money. Okay. Hi Stephanie, thank you. Yeah. Thanks for coming. And is this Paula?
We have a different dairy, of course, in the boat. No, breakfast is
Hello everyone, welcome. Is this one? My name is Sarah Jackson and I'm the Secretary of Barnet Stand Up to Racism. Thank you for all coming to our Rally for Justice. We're raising awareness for two campaigns that we're running currently. One, and they're both related. One is the campaign against Section 60 stop and search and the disproportionate use of stop and search on black and brown people. And again, if you haven't already, please pick up the leaflet on this on our table. We need to be informed. We need to have the facts and figures to persuade people of our argument that this needs to be scrapped. We've got a speaker from Haringey Stand Up to Racism, Vivek, who's going to explain the details of this to us. And then we've got another important campaign on justice for the victims of people who've died in police custody or other types of custody. And we have 4 family members of victims here in the UK speaking about their experiences and their individual campaigns. But we're going to start with a vigil. After the horrific murder of George Floyd, we started a Take the Knee campaign in Barnet to protest about his murder, and because of the strength of feeling locally, this then grew into a weekly vigil in High Barnet and then also Finchley, in memory of all victims of police deaths or deaths in custody. Not just in the US, but here in the UK. This is not just a US problem. I've heard this time and time again. Why are you talking about this here? It's not just a US problem. The UK is not innocent in this. We have our own long list of victims who have died in police custody or other types of custody here in the UK, and that's what we want to raise awareness of today. And the appalling lack of justice and clarity around their deaths, but also the disproportionate number of black and brown victims. It was then we started contacting the United Friends and Family campaign, who are here with us today, who've been fighting for decades for justice for their loved ones and that were killed by the police or in state custody. You can see a video, our video campaign on Facebook and Instagram stories today and in Instagram highlights. They're very powerful. They tell you how these people died, the circumstances of their death, and the fact that they're still being fought for justice. So can I all, if you are able, can I ask you all to take the knee for 9 minutes? This is the time it took to murder George Floyd. And we'll also remember all victims. So while we're taking the knee, Catherine is going to read out some of the names of the victims in this country, and then we'll carry out the rest of the 9 minutes in silence. Thank you.
Leon Briggs, Christopher Elder, Rashan Charles, Olaseni Lewis, Mark Duggan, Roger Sylvester, Sean Rigg, Edson DaCosta, Shane Bryant, Kingsley Burrell, Darren Cumberbatch, Nuno Cardozo, Sheku Bayo, Tamir Rice, age 12, Michael Brown, Matthew Abijadi, Tony McDade, Oscar Grant, Freddie Gray, Terence Crutcher, Michael Ramos, Dominique White, Ohilnado Castile Amidou Diallo, Manuel Loggins Jr., Ronald Madison, Kendra James, Sean Bell, Eric Garner, Alton Sterling, Akil Denkins, Gregory Gunn, Samuel DuBose, Brendan Glenn, Freddie Gray, Natasha McKenna, Walter Scott, Christian Taylor, Ezel Ford, Yvette Smith, Jamar Clark, Cherie Francis, Manuel Loggins, Latanya Haggerty, Margaret Mitchell, Leon Patterson, Yassar Yaqub, Winston Augustine, Mzee Mohammed.
Thank you, everyone. No justice. No justice. No justice. I don't know about you, but every time I do that, I'm struck by how long 9 minutes is and how horrific George Floyd's death really was. So his murderers and his main murderer needs to be done for first-degree murder, without a doubt. Okay, what I'd like to do now is hand over to our first speaker. Vivek is from Harrowing, Stand Up to Racism, and he's going to talk to us about the Section 60 stop and search, which is something that's really in the public eye at the moment, and the disproportionate use of it against black people. Thank you.
Good afternoon. As Sarah said, my name is Vivek. I'm actually her counterpart in Harrowing. I'm the secretary of Harrowing Stand Up to Racism, and it's a privilege to be here today. Two quick apologies. Firstly, I'm so sorry my phone beeped during the silence. I thought I'd switched it off, but clearly I hadn't. And secondly, and more importantly, to the families here today, I'm sadly not going to be able to stay right through to the event, so I'm going to hear all of your stories. I've got to be at another event back in Tottenham at 4 o'clock today, so apologies if I leave early. It's no disrespect. I appreciate you being here. Thank you for coming today. Okay, as Sarah said, I want to talk about Section 60, and it is, as Sarah says, in the public eye. Just a few names I looked up this morning. Dawn Butler, MP. Danny Rose, professional footballer. Bianca Williams, Olympic athlete. And most recently in the news, Inspector Charles Ikoa, a black inspector for the Metropolitan Police. Now, for every one of these people that the police have had to apologise to, there are tens, if not hundreds, of ordinary people who are experiencing disproportionate stop and search, disproportionate policing every single day. And there are lots of powers the police can use for stop and search. Section 1 of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, 1984. Section 23 of the Misuse of Drugs Act, 1971. The counter-terrorism legislation, all of which, according to official Home Office statistics, you're 4 times more likely to be stopped and searched if you're black than if you're white. 4 times more likely. And we haven't yet seen any stats on the coronavirus emergency legislation, what impact that has had, though I think anecdotally we can see what that has meant. But what I really want to talk about, what I'm here to talk about, is the stop and search, Section 60 stop and search under the Criminal Justice and Public Order Act of 1994. The reason why I particularly want to highlight that is because I think it's the most dangerous stop and search power. The other powers I talked about require reasonable grounds to stop and search. Section 60 removes the requirement for reasonable grounds. There is no requirement for the police officer to have any reason to stop you at all. And under that power, according to Liberty, the human rights organisation, you're 11 times more likely to be stopped and searched if you're black than if you're white. So clearly, a piece of legislation, a police power that is used even more against black people than existing powers, the ones I've already mentioned. So in London it's 11 times. In other parts of the country it's even worse. In Dorset, for instance, it's 25 times more likely to be stopped and searched if you're black than if you're white. 25 times. Now, the Section 60 powers are in the discretion of a senior police officer, usually a superintendent. Don't worry about those. And the legislation says they should be applied to the smallest possible area that you can. But in 25% of the orders issued, they've been for the whole of the borough. If you can imagine that in London, the whole of Barnet, the whole of Islington, the whole of Harrogate, that's the extent to which these powers are used. They could be extended up to, again, at a senior police officer's discretion, up to 48 hours. So you could have a whole borough under a Section 60 order for 2 full days. And that gives the police the power without any grounds to stop and search people. And they clearly, as the figures show, been used in a discriminatory manner. There was guidance around the use of Section 60, introduced by Theresa May, not exactly champion of anti-racism, the woman who came up with the phrase hostile environment. The current Home Secretary has removed those guidelines. Priti Patel has said, no, we don't need any guidelines, we don't need any restrictions on the use of Section 60, so we've yet to see how that will disproportionately affect black and ethnic minority people. The figures aren't out yet on that. So, what's the point of Section 60? Does it make a difference to crime? No. 80% of Section 60 stop and searches led to no further action at all. Only 3% of Section 60 stop and searches led to an arrest. Only 2% of those searches found a knife or other offensive weapon. So no impact on crime, no impact on keeping us safe, which is the justification for using this. The head of the Metropolitan Police, Cressida Dick, had to say to the Home Office Select Committee just in June that during May of 2020 in London, over 21,000 young black men were stopped under Section 60 power. That equates to 25% of young black men between 15 and 24, a quarter. Can you imagine if that happened to white people? If 25% of white young men were stopped and searched, there would be the Daily Mail, the Sun, the Telegraph, all calling for the resignation of the Home Secretary. These are the kind of powers they're using. So I want to finish on this last point. I think it leads into what you're about to hear from the families. This is not an isolated thing. This is a pattern of institutional racism that we've been talking about since the inquiry into the death of Stephen Lawrence. More recently, the David Lammy report, my MP in Tottenham in 2017, discriminatory justice, discrimination in the criminal justice system from police contact right through to courts, right through to sentencing. This is not an isolated thing. It feeds into all the other aspects of racism of the criminal justice system. If you're black, you're 4 times more likely to be tasered. You're disproportionately likely, as you're about to hear, to die at the hands of the police. Black Afro-Caribbean people make up 3% of the population of the UK, and 8% of the deaths at the hands of the police. 2.5 times more likely. And you're going to hear the stories now. But I want to finish on a positive note. I think things can be changed. I think there is an atmosphere created, largely through the tragic death of George Floyd, the murder of George Floyd, that people want to see change. When statues are coming down, when people are talking about decolonising education, when people are talking about actually defunding the police, an old demand of the civil rights movement, and in Minnesota, the city council there are actually voting on defunding the police. Yes, there's a discussion about what that means, but I think we are at a moment where we can actually achieve real change. I'm very optimistic that Section 60 can be revoked, that the guidelines can be reinstated if it's not revoked, that we can actually make a difference to this discriminatory, unnecessary and brutal police power. I think we can win this one, and I commend you all to join the campaign for it. Thank you for hearing me speak.
Thank you, Vivek, for a really informative speech. I don't think most people appreciate how often young black men in London are stopped by the police. It's so ridiculously frequent that it becomes part of some people's daily routine in certain parts of London. I was watching a BBC podcast recently on a very inspirational young Somalian councillor in Lambeth. He's also a youth worker. His name is Dr. Mohammed Hashi. You might have heard of him. And he described being stopped by the police 60 times, over 60 times since he was a teenager. And he said he knew people who had suffered that far more frequently, 3 or 4 times a day. Even in EastEnders. we've been running a story about racial profiling recently. And you know it's a thing when EastEnders starts covering it. And the thing that it starts with, what strikes you about that storyline, is a psychological effect on the young men that are being targeted racially by the police. The erosion of their confidence, the humiliation, the inherent rage inside for constantly being stopped when they haven't done anything wrong, and which often turns to depression. I mean, think about it. How would you feel if you were stopped every week and you had done nothing wrong, or even every day? And for what? As Vivek says, it doesn't bring any benefits. For the most part, it doesn't deter crime, and it doesn't lead to any prosecutions. So it is time that we take a stand and stop this. Anyway, moving on, I'd like to now introduce our first speaker from the United Friends and Family Campaign. He is the recently elected chair of UFFC and the father of Yassar Yaqub, who was shot dead by the police in 2017 in Huddersfield. He's travelled all that way from Huddersfield to speak to us today, so please welcome Mr. Mohammed Yaqub.
Thank you for everyone coming today. It gives me no pleasure to be here because I'm going to be talking about my son, killed, murdered, assassinated by the West Yorkshire Police on the 2nd of January 2017. I represent everyone who's been killed by the police, all UFFC members, people who've been there for 20 odd years. So I'm newly to this, 3 years and 8 months exactly today when they killed my son. My son, 28 years of age, was traveling from a restaurant and the police did a hard stop. He was a passenger in the car and shot him 3 times without any warning, no body cameras, no CCTV, nothing. And the police officer says, I shot him once, I saw him roll back his eyes, shot him twice to make sure, shot him 3rd time to eliminate the danger. He said that he saw a gun. Well, there was a gun in the car, but no fingerprints, no DNA of my son whatsoever. The driver was convicted of that offense. The driver said that my son was on telephone talking to someone, and who he was talking to is the person that informed me. So on 2nd of January, the police did not only just kill my son, they killed me, my wife, which is over here, Safia, and all my family. 3 years and 8 months. We've never had a day when I can honestly say, hand on my heart, that we've had dry eyes. My wife sleeps each night with a photograph of my son on her chest. My son Yassar had a 6-month-old baby boy. He asks every day, where is my daddy? We tell him he's gone to heaven. Granddad, can I go up there as well? For 3 years and 8 months, we've done nothing but visit his grave every morning without fail, each and every day, without even a cup of tea. So West Yorkshire Police to now have not said anything to us, or the IOPC, which is a waste of time. And now I have insisted that our case inquest should be dealt by a judge. Finally, they've agreed to that. So there are so many people in the UFFC that are in same pain, still fighting for justice. We're all fighting for justice. If you look at each and every one of us, yeah, no one's ever had any justice. By the grace of God, I will do my best, try to get justice. I have left no stones unturned. I have had my own ballistics done, own post-mortem done, all inquiry privately done. So therefore, the West Yorkshire Police know that they are having a hard struggle with us as well. So once all, can you please join me in justice for Yassar? Justice for Yassar. Justice for Yassar. Justice for all. Justice for all. Justice for all. Justice for all. When do we want it? Now. When do we want it? Now. When do we want it? Now. Police are the murderers. Police are the murderers. Police are the murderers. I will thank everyone for joining me in this. Thank you very much.
Thank you for a really powerful speech, Mr. Yaqub, and our sincere condolences for your loss. Our next speaker is the cousin of Winston Augustine, who was found dead in custody in Wormwood Scrubs in 2018. Please welcome from West London, Diane Martin.
So, hi everyone again, thank you for attending. I've just been nominated to be the treasurer of UFFC, but we're not talking about UFFC today. I'm here because of my cousin, Winston Augustine. His picture's up here. Yeah, I don't really know what to say, but you couldn't imagine. My cousin's in prison, he's done wrong. You know, he's done the crime, he's got to do his time. The last thing we expected, or as I say we, my aunt, who was in the crowd, Winston's mum, we didn't expect to get the family liaison knocking on the door. So Winston's anniversary is next Sunday, it's 2 years. It took 16 months to get a PPO report. We're being supported through inquest with a solicitor. Only Wednesday just gone we've got our first PIR date, which is the pre-inquest hearing. I can't really say too much because we haven't had our inquest, but what I want to make you people realise, my cousin was of mixed heritage like myself, half English, half St. Lucian. That shouldn't matter where you come from. You know, my skin colour is lovely. People pay thousands to try and go on a sunbed and get my skin colour. My cousin supposedly was found dead hanging from a sink in segregation in HMP Wormwood Scrubs. Let me tell you, the sink was this high. It's not a standard sink unit. The sink unit in prisons has got a toilet seat attached. How can you possibly hang yourself from a sink? Yeah? A sink that is this high, people. It's got a toilet seat, you know. I don't really know what else to say, but it doesn't only go on by the police, it goes on behind prison doors. It's just that no one really knows. Most deaths, if you look up the statistics, in prison they're going to tell you, oh, it was hanging, it was suicide. Some of them was. I'm not saying that some people don't kill themselves. Not my cousin. My cousin fought cancer, he beat cancer. Why are you going to go in prison and then kill yourself? You know, he was on remand, but I just want to bring it to light that it happens on a regular basis. I think the statistics are about 2 people a week here in the United Kingdom are dying in prisons. They go and tell the families, we're really sorry, it was suicide. Us as a family, we're not leaving it. You know, they're going to have a hard fight on their hand. We have got the PPO reports, which I would love to tell you all about, but I can't. And that's another thing, when your family member is murdered or killed or loses their life under suspicious circumstances, you feel like you can't grieve, because we can't tell the world what we know. You know, so we're silenced yet again. Until we've had our inquest, we are silenced. My cousin was 43 years old, was in prison, but didn't deserve to lose his life. He never got a life sentence, he never got the death sentence. Yeah, as my aunt saying, we have. We're living through this every single day. And next Sunday is Winston's anniversary. we're doing our own protest outside HMP Worm Scrubs that we would do every year for as long as we can. Yeah, and I'd just like to say thank you for attending, and unfortunately this is real life for us. But thank you everyone. No peace.
No justice, no peace.
No racist police.
Thank you, Diane, for another very powerful speech and very moving. And again, our condolences for your loss. I'd like to take the opportunity now. We've heard from a couple of the UFFC speakers to briefly talk about our petition. If you haven't picked one up, please pick up a leaflet on the table, which details the petition that we've put together based on the UFFC demands, and it gives you details of how you can sign it as well. So the petition calls for a number of reforms. These demands have been raised in response to the experience of these families in trying to get justice for their loved ones, and the challenges and the obstructions that they've faced as a result of it. And I'm going to read out these demands so that you can understand what we're asking for, because none of these should be omitted from a civilized society. So the first is the replacement of the Independent Office of Police Conduct, which is supposed to investigate these deaths, to ensure open, robust, transparent and thorough investigations into all police deaths in custody by a truly independent body from the very outset of the death. The second, officers and officials directly involved in custody deaths be suspended until investigations are completed. To me, that's a no-brainer. Number three, immediate interviewing of officers and all officials concerned with the death. The fourth, officers and officials should never be allowed to collude over their evidence and statements of fact. Number five, full disclosure of information to the families. I know that must be particularly painful not to have the details of your loved one's death. Number six, prosecutions should automatically follow unlawful killing verdicts at inquests, and officers responsible for those deaths should face criminal charges even if they're retired. Number seven, implementation of police body cameras and cameras in all police vehicles. Number eight, the end of means testing of families for legal aid. There is a lack of funds for family legal representation at inquests, while officers and NHS staff get full legal representation from the public purse. This is unbalanced. And you might think, oh, well, that sounds fair, means testing. But when you're talking about tens of thousands of pounds, that's prohibitive for most people. And finally, number nine, prison deaths to be subject to a system of investigation that is completely independent of the prison service. So to me, all of those are perfectly reasonable demands. So please, get the information, make sure you sign up to the petition and follow this campaign, because we do need a change in these protocols. Okay, going back to the families, I'd like to invite Khala Mohammed, whose 18-year-old son, Mzee Mohammed, died from a cardiac arrest after being restrained by the police. And she's travelled from Liverpool to speak to us today, so thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone for being here today. My name is Carla. My son Mzee was 18 years of age. He left my house one sunny afternoon to go, as he said, pre his father's pots. I spoke to him a few times during the day. His dad said to me, Carla, he's more paranoid than usual today. I went, so I'm going to get on to his doctors and the crisis team. I contacted them. They said when he comes home, bring him down. I done him a taxi. 20 minutes later, still no sign. I reported him missing finally at 10 o'clock that evening. 11 o'clock, they said we're going to put him as high risk because he suffered with ADHD, autism and post-traumatic stress disorder. I phoned every hospital, no one fitting his description. I told them right down to his underwear, the colour of his socks. 1:45 in the morning, a knock on my door. 3 police. There's no easy way to tell you this, but your son is dead. I was like, I don't care what he's done, just take me to my son. They went, no, he said that he felt sick. It became apparent he wasn't well and he collapsed. That was that. Next day, a video becomes circulating with my son, with 8 officers pinning him to the ground, not breathing. He's wet himself. He was dead. Where was the handcuffs? He died on a stone cold floor in Liverpool 1 shopping centre. Now, fast forward 4 years, we've had our inquest. The outcome of the inquest was natural causes. What part of my son dying restrained by 8 officers, prior to the 8 officers it was 5 security guards, was natural. In the past 4 years, my 3 children, his siblings, have all been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. Every day I have to look at them same officers because they work out at a station close to where I live. They pull alongside, they smirk at me, they laugh at me. My 14-year-old daughter she goes to school, she has not been out with her friends since the day her brother died. My 11-year-old blames herself for them dying because she, as she said, Mummy, I had a meltdown and he was sick. I had to take my son to Jamaica because I wouldn't let his body be here where they killed him. I never got no justice. I just hope that one day, one family who has gone through this will get the justice that all our families deserve. And I'd like to thank UFFC, especially Steph, because she was the first one to reach out to me. And I just hope and pray that no other families have to go through what we go through on a daily basis. We're not living, we're existing. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. By Mzee, God, but not forgotten.
Thank you, Carla, for sharing that story.
Just to keep his voice up, we have to keep reliving it.
It must be so incredibly hard to it's incredibly hard to lose a child anyway, but to lose them in those circumstances and not being able to get justice for them is just heartbreaking. And I second her emotion about hoping that we can stop this, that because of a change in policies we can make sure that this does not happen to other families. So again, I extend my condolences to you, Carla, and your family. So finally, I'd like to welcome the last of our speakers, which is Stephanie Lightfoot Bennett, whose brother Leon Patterson died in police custody in 1992, which gives you an indication of how long these families have been fighting for.
Hi everybody. Once again, thanks for coming out. You know, we're the voices of the cemetery. And without us and without you, there is no voice. As Sarah said, in 1992, my brother was arrested in Manchester on suspicion of stealing a till out of British Home Stores at 5:30 on a Saturday afternoon. I managed to get the court records, the BT records that proved he was on the phone, on a phone box, talking to me at the time. Leon got chased down. And when I say chased down, he got chased down like a dog. They couldn't catch him, so they had to get a car to chase him, and they still couldn't catch him. Leon was jumping fences, he was jumping walls. I'm just giving you a synopsis of they could not catch him. Leon got captured. He's got taken back to Stockport police station, where apparently Leon is a heroin addict. Now bearing in mind, they couldn't catch him. So I don't know of any heroin addicts that can run like that. I went up to see my brother, because they wanted to know how I was getting up to Manchester. Got up there, and they separated myself, my younger brother and my older brother, who they flew in from Belize because he was serving at the time. They wanted him to identify Leon, but he said, I can't give you a story on Leon, you need to talk to his twin. And they refused to talk to me. We got taken to the morgue and they wanted us to look through, you know, like you see it on Quincy, you look through a window and there you formally do the identification. I refused and stormed into the morgue. They took the sheet down from his face, and my first reaction was, who the fuck is that? Because that ain't my twin. I did not recognise my own twin brother. His face was so disfigured, it was black and blue. His eyebrows were monobrow. The tip of his nose was missing. So then I said to him, I want to see the body. No, you've already formally identified him. And I said, no, I want to see the body. So we're fighting now over the sheet. And behind me is this chief superintendent saying to me, you do realise all these injuries are self-inflicted? And I'm like, shut up, shut up, shut up. We've checked Leon's body. His kneecaps were on the side. He had truncheon marks down his body. His eyes were black and blue. And I'm now, let's flip him. So now we've got two morgue attendants trying to hold him down so we can't flip him. We flip him. His truncheon marks all down the back. And this officer is still telling me, you do know this is self-inflicted. You do know that he did this to himself. And all I could say was, if you say it one more time, I will punch you in your mouth. And my younger brother was like, please don't upset my sister. Well, he was stupid enough to say it again, and yes, I did punch him in his mouth. At the first inquest, I managed to get it stopped after 3 days, because while sitting outside the court waiting to go back in after lunch, I spoke to a black guy that was sitting there. And I was like, oh, what, you up in court free then? He's like, yeah. Then all of a sudden he started snarling. And I was like, oh, what's your problem? He went, see that over there, see that? So I was like, yeah, that's the woman on my jewellery, like for my brother. He went, you do know that Sergeant Gent's wife? Only to find out the custody sergeant, that was his wife on my brother's jewellery. So I managed to get it stopped after 3 days. The second inquest, I managed to get my brother's sample sent down to London because I wasn't liking the narrative that they kept following of, here is a man who died of a drug overdose. And they was putting that out before I'd even formally identified my twin. So now, we're at the second inquest. Like I said, sent the samples down to London, got them DNA tested. I thought what they done to Christopher Alder's family was bad enough when they gave the wrong body back of a white woman to bury. The samples that they were using for my twin were samples of a heroin addict. But I managed to get them tested, and it came back that this is not our samples and you've been using the wrong ones all this time. Now, the coroner refused to allow the jury to have unlawful killing verdict, and it was one woman that stood up, and she's in contact with me today, that stood up and said, "We want unlawful killing." There was a hospital 500 yards away. You chose not to take him there. You left him naked, covered in all bodily functions, laying on a floor with no blanket, no mattress, no pillow, no nothing. You took his clothes away from him. All he had was a pair of socks that the tips were worn away from where they dragged him on a concrete floor. The tips of his toes were red raw where they dragged him along the floor. They carried him into the cell, face down, handcuffed, naked, unconscious. But here is a man feigning illness, waiting to escape. The coroner had to give in the end and allow them to have the unlawful killing verdict, which I got. Leon was the third person since 1967. What does that tell you about this so-called just society that we live in? But here's the kicker. While I was up at the Fringe Festival doing a play regarding my brother, to which I won the Fringe First and the Scotsman's Award, because it was so powerful, you had to be 18 to come in and watch this play, because it was graphical. I had his post-mortem photos up. 2 years while I'm on stage, I get a call. They're overturning the verdict. So now they've come back. Leon died from hypomania, which basically means it's the happy delirium but under a different name. I had one investigation that was done by the IOPC. They upheld. CPS refused to bring charges because of the police investigation, which is police investigating police. Let's not get that twisted. I had a second time. I appealed. They managed, well, this time it was the IPCC. By the time I got a reply back from them, which they basically cut and paste the first report to make the new report, which ended 3 years ago. I then complained and appealed to the IOPC. Oh, I'm running out of the initials here. I appealed to the arseholes again. Let's just keep it there. They upheld me on 6 major points of how did you come to this conclusion? How could you come to this when you have not spoken to anybody? Oh, well, we couldn't find witnesses, and we can't find the transcripts from the inquests. There is none. There's no recordings. There's nothing, because back then we didn't have it. Well, this set of investigating officers have found 69 statements, and they've managed to pull in 65. So I want to know what's in those other 5. So when you look at me, don't look at me as I'm fighting a good cause, and I'm fighting for everybody else. Look at the families that have passed me. Look at the families that are out there. The new families, the kids that are walking the streets today, could be another statistic. We need to come together, to unite as one. Don't matter that I'm mixed. I mean, I'm made up of the most 2 persecuted races on this planet. My mother's half Polish, Jew, English, and my dad's from St. Vincent. And I see there's none of you here. Okay, but this is what I'm trying to get across. You know, I hate the word BAME, because I'm not a BAME. That makes me feel like if it's babe. I'm not a pig, I'm a person. I too suffer with post-traumatic stress. I too have had ailments since all of this has happened. There's not a single family out there that is not suffering. Some suffer in silence. Some turn to drink. I did. This is what they've left behind. Shattered, broken people. Let's not even get onto the topic of all the police have all the legal advice that can be mustered, paid by the public purse. But when it comes to us defending ourselves, defending our loved ones, we get nothing. We get means tested. What? Where is the justice and where is the fairness? I want to go into court at a level playing field. When it came to Leon's inquest, I conducted my brother's inquest. Me, little girl from Islington. I conducted his inquest. No family should have to do that. I didn't get a chance to grieve. A lot of families don't get a chance to grieve because the hurt is there. The pain is real. My tears are just as salty as every other family that I've come across. There's not a family out there that isn't grieving the way I grieve. But yes, again, we are the minority. We are the ones that are never heard. Well, this time we're going to be heard. We're having a rally on the 31st of October. Bring your banners, bring your whistles, bring your drums, bring your granny in your wheelchair if you have to. But come and join us. 12 o'clock, Trafalgar Square, every year, the last Saturday of October. We need your support because we're not just united families, we're united families and friends. And without your support, we have nothing. So the heavens are opening, our loved ones are crying, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephanie, for a really powerful speech. And
if there's any families that have been touched or have been affected, please get in contact with us, United Families and Friends, or you can give your phone numbers to Sarah. Thank you very much.
thank you, everyone. Look like the films on. Please come to the 31st of October rally that Stephanie mentioned. Also, Diane has got a vigil for her cousin on the 30th of August at Wormwood Scrubs. What Stephanie said is true. We need to stick together. It's only through solidarity that we'll prevail and that things will change. So no justice! No justice! No justice! Thank you!
And no racist police! Yes, I got it, yes. Barrio.